All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 5 of the Nick of Time podcast. We have 4 very special guests, and yes, I said 4. This is a history in the making on the podcast. We have more than one guest. I'm gonna start off with Nick Rahn. We have Will Jansen, Tommy Hester, and Chad Miller. These 4 guys are part of not only a nonprofit Fight or Die, but a movement. I like to call it movement because it's a lifestyle, it's a mindset. And these guys are doing something great, like rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Who does that? Very few people that I know. And it happens to be these 4 guys right here. So what that consists of is 3,000 miles rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, like I said, from Spain to Antigua, right? Yeah, I don't even know where that's at, but we'll get into that. Basically to raise awareness on veterans' mental health. Should be beginning sometime in December in 2022. So they're gearing up for this. They still got some time. And yeah, so I guess we could start off with Nick, introductions, if you want to give a little tidbit about yourself.
Sure, man. My name's Nick Rahn. I'm the founder of Warriors Next Adventure. It's a nonprofit that I started back in 2019 to help veterans with suicide prevention and crisis intervention. We continue to evolve. We have a wolf sanctuary in Minnesota. We take vets to play with wolves. We have a race car. It's a Saturn Ion. Don't get excited. We climb mountains. We're about to climb Mount Massive in Colorado in about 2 weeks. And Tommy and Chad are my ambassadors, and Will is my board member. And I just so happened to interview Bryant Knight, who's the founder of Fight or Die, on my podcast. And Chad wouldn't shut the fuck up about it and kept talking about it, and eventually talked someone into doing it. So yeah, that's kind of how Fight or Die and Warriors Next Adventure came together. So good times.
Yeah, you love to hear it. All right, Will, you want to give us a little tidbit about yourself?
Yeah, man. I live in a little town in northwestern Wisconsin. I got a woodworking shop. I own a campground. I do land development. Been married for 18 years. Got 2 awesome girls, 17 and 14. And we reconnected. Nick and I reconnected last year, and we did some cool adventure stuff. And I hadn't seen Chad since 2009, since we left Seymour, Jansen in North Carolina. So, and I got to meet Tommy a couple weeks ago when we all got together. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Love to hear it. So, Tommy, tell us your story.
Well, I won't tell you the whole thing.
Yeah, give us a little tidbit.
No, right now I'm living in Omaha, Nebraska. I live here with my wife and our 11-year-old son. I've been married just about 12 years. I'm a swimming pool and spa technician now, but holy shit, have I done a lot of different things since getting out of security forces. I served with these guys in 2008 in Camp Buka, Iraq. That's how we all got to know each other, except for Will. He was there at the same time, but he was doing detainee ops. God bless his soul for that.
Gross.
So I went and climbed Mount Elbert with Warriors Next Adventure last year. So I've been kind of staying in touch with Nick through that. And then once Chad became an ambassador too, and then listened to that podcast and then asked me to row a boat across the ocean. All I asked is, how big's the boat? And here I am.
It's a very interesting question. I love it. And lastly, Chad, by the way, Chad is the one that reached out to me. And he's the reason for all this. And I appreciate that. Chad, a little tidbit about yourself.
I'm still one of the only one on this team that's actually still technically part of the Air Force right now. I'm in the reserves up in Niagara Falls, Buffalo. Married with 3 kids. I got an 8-year-old son, a 5-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old daughter. And yeah, I met Nick and Tommy. I met Nick in tech school. We were in the same tech school team. We got to our first duty station at Seymour. We deployed 4 times out of there, roomed together, I think 2 or 3 that we actually roomed together, and met up with Tommy and Balad or Buka in 2008, like he said, and we ran all in the same convoy, Scorpion 1-5. So it was good times. And Will was actually one of our guys on, he worked the shift with me, so it's kind of cool. But then, like Nick said, I teamed up with him after hitting a substantial low point in my life. I reached out to Nick And he started talking about Warriors Next Adventure. I said, let's see what it's about. I got linked up with him and found out Tommy and Will were back in the mix with it. Climbed a mountain, Mount Marcy in New York. The following year, I took a vet team myself up there for Warriors Next Adventure, and then heard him on a podcast with some guy named Bryant talking about ocean rowing. And I went and watched the video. I watched the promo, and I think it was the same promo that I sent you. And after watching that promo, I get to the end of that video. I see the dude pop the flare. I see the look in his eyes, and I said something to the wife. I said, "Hey, want to row an ocean?" She was, I don't know if she thought I was serious at first, until like the third time of telling her, and then it kind of went from there. And so I applied. Got a message back from Bryant and the guys at Fight or Die saying, "Hey, you know, you have a full team. You're almost a shoo-in as long as your team, we approve your team." So that's when I reached out to Nick and coerced him into being a good friend and reminding him of all the good times we had before and how we wanted to expand on those. And then just so happens that Tommy and Will were on the top of my list, and also the same people that Nick wanted to bring them on board. So we reached out to them, and yeah, it's pretty much history from there. The conversations leading up to us getting on the team, of how we talked to each other about how this was going to all play out. It worked in many different ways, but I used the Warriors Next Adventure slogan against Nick, and from there it was great. When you have when you run a nonprofit and your slogan is explore everything, and your ambassador wants to row an ocean, what do you think he's going to use against you? You know,
You're an asshole.
Hey.
Yeah. So speaking of running nonprofits, so I know obviously, you know, we want to talk about rowing and the ocean and stuff, and we're definitely going to get to that. But this is probably going to be the first time in the podcast and the only time where I don't direct anything, I guess I would say. But whoever wants to answer this first, you know, whoever thinks they should answer this first, and if y'all want to answer, that'd be even better. What do you believe service is to you? Like when you hear the word service, because I know just by the tidbits of, you know, where you guys come from, a little bit about yourselves, I understand that the service never stops. You know what I mean? All prior military, Chad's still serving. And then now rowing the ocean, like all this like ties into play. And you could tell that it really is a lifestyle. It's not just something that, you know, we do here, we do there. It's our job. You know, you go home with that. So whoever would like to answer that, please.
Well,
Guys, let me take that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Service to me is 100% giving yourself to something bigger than you. You know, you can serve your country like we all have or still are, or you can serve your God. You can serve your family. In your mind, whatever is bigger than you and what you're capable of doing, but putting your all towards that. That's service. That's good service. McDonald's employees should listen to that shit. That was deep.
That's funny. That's beautiful though, because I think sometimes we forget, you know, that entails many different things. And especially as prior armed forces members, you know, people can really like put you in this bubble of like, this is what I am. Kind of like athletes and to say like, oh, you're an athlete, like, you know, shut up and like, you know, play ball, whatever the case may be. It's like, no, like that's still part of you, but you're more than that. It's your character, it's your truth, it's who you are. And I know just doing my research, doing my backstory, the whole like defining yourself as a veteran, be proud, obviously, you know, always hold that. But you guys are in a different light now. Obviously, Chad, you're still serving, but that service has transformed into maybe even something bigger than in the past. Not to diminish any of that. You know what I mean? But if any of you want to touch on that.
Yeah, one of the things I tell veterans very often is we don't have to identify as veterans. Like, it's cool to be a veteran. Yeah, I'm proud of being a veteran. Like, I'm not turning down or putting down being a veteran at all, right? But I don't identify as a veteran anymore. I identify as Nick, you know, founder of Warriors Next Adventure. I'm the guy that people can reach out to in their darkest days, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help pull them out of it. That's who I am now, right? I don't identify as a veteran. I just happen to be a veteran. And I think there's too many people who get out of the military and they cling on to that, and that is their only definition of who they are. But it's like, well, what else are you going to do with your life, right? Yeah, we did some amazing things when we were in the military. You know, like Chad said, me and him deployed 4 times together. I was a 50 cal gunner on, in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And then we did like law enforcement stuff in Iraq in 2009, 2010, and horrible deployment to Qatar in 2007. It was rough, man.
That's right.
But no, so there's a lot of cool things that we did while we were in the military, but life doesn't end when you get out of the military. And I think there's too many people who focus on the past rather than focusing on what their future could be. And so one of the things I try to do with WNA is to help veterans realize that, hey, listen, there's something beyond the military, right? Who are you? Who are you going to define yourself as, right? And, you were talking about service. You ever read the 5 love languages?
Yes, I have.
So acts of service is my number 1, of course. And I need to feed that. And if I'm not feeding that, I feel like I don't have a purpose, right? So I had a lot of different things happen in my past that kind of led me to where I'm at. And I'm thankful that they all worked in unison to get me to where I am now, because now that I've found my purpose and know who I want to be, who I am, and who I'm going to be 5 years from now, if that's the most rewarding thing you can do for yourself, is know what your purpose is. If you live with purpose, your life will be amazing.
For sure. So I got a question for Tommy, piggybacking off of purpose. When you talk about, because I have supervisors that are getting ready to retire, and I also have, peers that are getting ready to separate. When you talk about your purpose as far as when you were serving compared to now, because it's still, under that same blanket, you're serving, you're caring for people, you're trying to make this world a better place. But how does that transition change between, hey, we're in Iraq to, hey, now we're about to roll across the ocean?
Well, it takes a crazy motherfucker to do some crazy shit that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes a crazy motherfucker to sign up for active duty security forces 2006. So I think they kind of translate into each other pretty evenly there. The things I did in the military have gotten me ready to do some amazing things. But I'm like Nick, I don't identify as a veteran. Hey, Tommy Hester, former Air Force Security Forces. It's not how I introduce myself. The things I do build my character. And the character that you have being a veteran, you develop that either before basic training or shortly into basic training. Get some discipline, get some character traits. It'll take you big, long places and big, great things. So now that, I'm in my 30s, the Air Force for me was a long time ago. And the Air Force now is a much different organization, I think, than it was when I got out. And the help's just not there for the guys that are getting out. And that's not just the ones that have, PTSD from deployments or TBIs or any other things that are just going on with them. There's no transitional help. So I know when I got out, it was kind of just, here's your DD-214, see ya.
It's the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was difficult. So missing the camaraderie was huge. So being able to work with organizations like Fight Oar Die and Warriors Next Adventure, I get to put my face on doing awesome shit that other people hopefully want to emulate doing.
For sure. Awesome. So now, obviously, like I said, we're getting to the nitty gritty as far as the actual rowing, but I wanted to bring up mental health. So if Will, if you wanted to express to me, when you talk about mental health as far as in the military, out of the military, what that means to you. And the reason why I'm just trying to extract some of these feelings. So when we start talking about this rowing, to the audience out there and the people watching, all this stuff, basically literally set sail of where this comes from. Because I believe nothing comes from nothing. You know what I mean? Obviously, everything has a reaction. So, Will, if you want to touch on just mental health and what these guys, you know, on this podcast have done, not only for yours, but just, you know, your life and your family and your life at home.
Yeah, as far as mental health goes, we all struggle with it, right? And when you're in your mid-20s, when you get out of the Air Force, you're like this hardcore dude, right? And you don't want to talk about your feelings, right? Like it's just not something mid-20-year-old guys do. And so for me, I've learned you got to talk to somebody about it, you know, and obviously the role, we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about our feelings, right? Like we're gonna have days and days and days to talk about it. But like as far as you know, in the past couple of years, there's just stuff that I found people in my life that relate to the things that I gone through. And, you know, those are the guys you gotta find and talk to, you know, and you gotta talk about it. Like I don't care how badass you are, you gotta talk about it. That's what I found.
Yes, I love to hear it. And I think one thing I always tell people, especially since I've started this podcast, especially as men, you know, but everyone has the issue is, you know, being vulnerable. So I think if you make yourself vulnerable, you give yourself that power to say like, hey, I'm not okay, but that is okay, you know? But I feel like a lot of times as human beings, especially as alpha males, you know, we try to say, if I'm not okay, then the world is just, you know, hell froze over. And then that down spirals into a lot of things. So Chad, if you want to talk about being vulnerable and what that means to you, because I know you've gone through some experiences that have really struck you in major ways.
Right. And I don't know if we talked about this on the phone. I talked about it a little bit with Dylan Sessler, the guy who wrote the book Defy the Darkness. I'd say if you haven't read that book yet, I would suggest anyone to go get that book. It is a powerful book. I read the book within a matter of 24 hours. I read the book. I did a podcast with Dylan, and that's probably the first time where I've actually sat down and broke down my mental health game of where I was. Being vulnerable used to be a thing. Like growing up, I saw my dad get emotional at times, but it was never anything like he would just open up. My dad was kind of like, he would come out and he would tell you, hey, I love you, stuff like that. But it was never like any of his stuff would never flood out. He kept his problems to himself kind of thing. And then when I left for the military, you know, that's what they expect of you. They expect you to, you're tough. Like Will said, you get in there and they harden you up and they're ready to go. And then once we got there, it was back to back deployments. And, you know, my first day of actual flight at Seymour Johnson, I had already been deployed twice. So when I get to flight and I've already had 2 deployments under my belt, and the second was a 50 cal gunner for convoys, you know, you feel untouchable. But that kind of shifted gears for me personally when I went through some personal stuff when I was in Balad in 2009, and I was going through it. I was in a little bit of trouble. I was actually rooming with Nick at the time, but I got myself in a little bit of heat with the Air Force, and I talked to a chaplain, and the chaplain kind of, not the chaplain you want to see, not the ones I've dealt with in the past or after this, but pretty much gave me hey, you know, life sucks, and it's too bad you've done some bad things because you seem like a good person. And my parents, little backstory, my parents were both pastors growing up, like my first 10 years of life. So when you start telling me stuff like, hey, you've done unforgivable things, and I'm sitting here thinking, man, it's not that bad of stuff. It kind of messes with your head, especially when you're away from home dealing with personal stuff. And I found myself secluding myself. And I think Nick had just actually witnessed responding to a suicide in Balad a couple of days before. So he was quiet, so I didn't talk to him. And I found myself sitting in a porta-john outside of JDoc in Balad with my pistol. And I had just called my mom and my younger brother, and it sucks to say it every time I say it, but I actually called them both and apologized for being a shitty son and a shitty brother. And, you know, to do that and to make through both calls and still feel that way is unbelievable. And I had a guy that just happened to step out of JDoc and notice something was wrong and talk to me. And within a matter of seconds, it would have been a completely different outcome. So, I mean, that wasn't the end of my struggles. That was about the time I realized that it's okay to talk to people. And then 2018 was when I reached out to Nick, and because I was going through a rough patch with a business that I opened that was a bad business venture, and I reached out to Nick, and he was one of the first things he told me was, you know, it's okay to admit that there's shit going on in your life. And he started telling me about Warriors Next Adventure. I went out for my first hike that they did of Mount Marcy up in New York, and I'll tell you what, the feeling of being out there with all the guys, like I got out, went reserves, but I still never had that. It's not the same. It's not the camaraderie. It's not the same. So hiking a mountain with a bunch of random military vets talking shit to each other for hours going up a hill was, the camaraderie was back, and I felt a powerful change to that. And that's kind of when it shifted to where I came on board with Nick and the guys. And ever since then, it's kind of been stuff that I usually would have never talked about is now in the open, because it's like, I got no problem. You ask me, hey, if you struggle, it's okay to be vulnerable. I tell you, I struggle. Next time you come up with a struggle and you're sitting there and you're thinking, damn, I remember I did a podcast with this guy who was in the same position and struggling, and he found himself in the bottom and worked his way up. Let me give him a call and just to shoot the shit. Doesn't have to be anything important. Just call me to shoot the shit. And then if you want to say, hey, man, I'm struggling. Hey, dude, I'll sit there in the trenches with you all day long. That's not a problem with me. I have nothing but time when it comes for vets and for people I've served with and people who have served. And anyone who's struggling, I have no problem with that. That's where vulnerability for me, that's where it kind of stepped up, was in experiencing my own stuff and having, like Will said, the right people at the right time. I think every one of us probably would have had, if we would have had the wrong people those times, we would have probably had different outcomes to where we're at.
For sure. And I think sometimes a conversation is all it takes, you know, because a conversation, literally, you can physically, not as well as mentally, feel the weight come off, right? Especially as men, because you try to internalize and control the situation. But all these issues, you know, that, you know, Chad, Nick, Tommy, well, I'm sure y'all all had, we try to control it so much that's when we realize, hey, it's not in our control. So then we down spiral, you know, instead of just taking it for what it is and saying like, hey, I'm not okay, but that's okay. I know that's just like a cliche phrase, but it is okay to not be okay. And I appreciate, you know, telling us that story. Nick, I know you have a similar experience. I don't know if you want to touch on that or not, but if you do, I'd appreciate it, just because I know people need to realize it's not just everybody, you know, like one person out of four, like everybody has their struggles and we all go through it. So if you want to give us a little backstory on your story, Nick.
Yeah, so 2010, like Chad was saying, I was in Balad and I was base security that day, and we got a phone call for shots fired on base, and we didn't know what it was potential suicide. And so I got to base housing, and I ran inside the room, and an Army guy had gotten dressed for work, laid down in his bed and shot himself to the bottom of the chin to the top of the head with an M16. And the problem was he was still alive when I got in the room. I ran over to him, and I mean, what do you do in a situation like that, you know? So I just put my hand on his chest, told him everything was going to be okay, and he grabbed my hand. I still feel his hand grab my fingers in the middle of the night sometimes. It's kind of strange. And I just sat there with him until he died. And I didn't really know what to do, and I kind of just shut down. It didn't affect me at the time because I shut down and I blocked every single emotion, and I just went and did what I normally do. And I went to the gym and trained jiu-jitsu and choked some people out, and I felt better, thinking that it was over. But it continued to fester, and it just got worse as the years went by. I ended up getting out of the military in 2012, and things were not good for me. I found out that Jody had been hanging around after my last deployment, and I said, fuck it, I got out. And moved back to Minnesota. Ended up getting back together with my ex because she was pregnant with my second kid, and I figured that would be the right thing to do. But that was not the right thing to do. Got to the point where I just hated my life. I was a bouncer downtown Minneapolis, and I got into some recreational drugs, cocaine, and drinking pretty much every single night, beating the shit out of people, and I was just a huge piece of shit. I absolutely hated myself, mainly because, you know, like, yeah, it was fun. I had a good time, but at the same time, I started cheating and started just being the worst fucking person that I never wanted to be. I always wanted to be a good family person. You know, me and my ex had been together for 7 years when I found out she had cheated on me. So like I thought like my whole world was crumbling. But I tried multiple times to get it back together. And 2016 or 2015 comes around, and just again everything's just kicking my ass. I was full blown alcoholic. I was drinking probably a bottle of Jameson a day, if not every other day. I had a couple hiding spots in my house that nobody knew about. I had a boat in my garage. I had a hidden compartment in my boat where I kept all my liquor. I was a very good alcoholic, and got to the point where I found out my ex had been cheating on me again, and that was just it. Like at the time, I hated my kids. I had 2 kids, and I was just a piece of shit, and I hated them. I didn't want to be around them. I spent most of my nights in the garage, or I'd be gone just by myself in the middle of nowhere. And I said, fuck it. And I decided I was going to go up to the Boundary Waters, and I put a 9mm in my head and I pulled the trigger. But lucky for me, the round didn't go off. So when I dropped the magazine, I pulled the slide back. I looked at the bullet. The primer was struck, but the primer was a dud. And I remember being so fucking pissed that I couldn't even fucking kill myself. I can just, everything I do is fucking wrong. So I decided at that point, you know what? I'm fucking tired of letting my past control me. And so I'm going to start controlling myself. And so I decided that I was going to create the person who could have pulled that gun out of my head, because I didn't think that person existed. I didn't give myself a time frame or anything like that, but I just decided that I didn't want to be a piece of shit anymore. I didn't want to feel like shit. I didn't want to feel terrible. I was so tired of being the person I never wanted to be. And 2 years later, I was a 911 dispatcher for the Minnesota State Patrol. So I'm trained in crisis intervention and suicide prevention. So it's something I'm very good at. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that I've had a lot of training in it, and we have a very good record with Warriors Next Adventure. That's for me though. Nobody else needs to know how many it is. So let's just say we've never lost one. I got a phone call, and it was a 911 call, and the lady said that she was going to kill herself. So we have GPS on the cell phones, but we also have cameras. So she popped up right next to a camera. I pulled her up on camera, and she was standing on the bridge getting ready to jump. So we started to talk, and relatability is the most important thing you can do. Anybody's dealing with anybody who may be suicidal, the first thing you can do, find something that you guys relate to, because once you guys have relatability, they trust you. And so trying to gain her trust, I found out she was a veteran. I'm like, perfect. I was like, I'm a veteran too. And I asked her, you know, like, what'd you do in the military? She's like, I was in the Army, and I was raped in the military, but I never said anything. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, why would you never report this? And so we kept going, talking. A few minutes go by, and she takes a step forward like she's going to jump. I'm like, wait. So now this was 2017. In 2 years, I'd never told anybody that I had tried to kill myself. I kept that to myself, and I buried it. Like many other things I do, I bury everything. And I told her, I was like, listen, before you go, can I just tell you something I've never told anybody else? 2015, I was at that same point, and I just wanted to die. I didn't want to be alive anymore. I was fucking tired of living, and I put a gun to my head and I pulled the trigger. And I've been trying to figure out, why am I still alive for so many years now? And I think this might be it. Maybe it's to talk you out of this. And so she ended up getting down. And that was the first time at work I'd ever gotten emotional. I broke down in tears. I dropped my headset. I ran in the back room. I was like, I need a fucking minute. And that kind of got the ball rolling to me thinking, like, you know what? I think I can do something with this. You know, working as a dispatcher, it's not enough. And Michael, the guy who had killed himself in Iraq, a part of my issues with like PTSD, I see him almost every night. I have a lot of flashbacks. And some nights I think it's real. Sometimes, like, I know I'm just dreaming, and it's kind of like what they call it, lucid dreaming. It's really strange.
Yeah.
But I started to like ask him, like, why do you keep coming to me? So Tony Robbins gives a speech, and he talks about the reason why certain things affect us in certain ways is because of the meaning that we assign to it. And so I started to get to the point where I was having panic attacks, and I was sleeping really bad. I have a hole in my heart now because of so much fucking stress. And I decided to give a meaning to why I constantly see Michael. And then Warriors Next Adventure was born. I was like, you know what? I've talked multiple people out of suicide at my job. It's my job and I'm very good at it, but I also have a connection with military members that most counselors and, therapists don't. So I'm going to create a nonprofit and I'm going to figure out how I can help veterans with suicide prevention. And it just kept evolving and kept evolving. And then next thing you know, Chad asked me to row a boat across the ocean for another organization. It's just crazy the way things work, man.
For sure. No, that's a beautiful story, and I appreciate you sharing. I think back to what I said earlier about everything has a reaction. 2020 was, a terrible year for me. Even leading up to the beginning of this year, I was going through some things, struggling in my own head. I had a panic attack for the first time ever while I was sleeping. And usually I'm a pretty hard sleeper. So like nothing ever like bothers me in my sleep. But when I woke up, I was baffled. I didn't know what to do. I could barely breathe. And for the first time ever since I've been in, it was a short amount of time. I'm coming up shy 5.5. I talked to a chaplain, and shout out to my chaplain. He's a real dude, and all we did was sit and talk. And I literally just kept talking. I was like, "You just sit there." You know what I mean? You don't have to say anything, don't do anything, just sit there. But I love to hear these stories because that reaction, I know where this row is coming from. And it's coming from deeper than something challenging. Like we can all go do a challenge. Hey, this is coming from within, and all those sacrifices and all those heartaches and even the good times, all that fused in together, creates a great team like this. So we can get into the whole actual rowing part. Will, I want to start with you because you're the navigator. I can do it because I suck at land nav. I couldn't even imagine in the middle of the ocean. You know what I mean? That's just me being honest. I try to shoot my asthma, and I'll get it done, but it's gonna be a little sloppy. So if you wanna elaborate.
We got a couple of GPS systems hooked up to the boat. So there's always a backup. We also have an auto helm, so GPS is actually connected to the rudder. And so we actually don't have to have somebody steering for us all the time. We just got to worry about rowing, and the GPS auto corrects the rudder and sends us on our way.
And we got the stars for navigation too. So
you love to see it. So it's not as bad, you would say.
No.
Not as bad. All right, Tommy, you're next, the engineer. Tell me a little bit about that. What goes into being the engineer?
Something's going to break. Probably that precious rudder Will was just telling you about. The water maker, you need water while you're out there. Those are notorious for just going bad or breaking. One little tiny O-ring in that thing, and you got to take the whole thing apart, figure out what the problem was, and fix it. Meanwhile, you're, 1,800 miles away from land in any direction. So that's my job. If it breaks or anything goes wrong out there with the boat itself, I will be able to fix it and keep us going. Let's just hope it's nothing too severe, like a hole in the boat or something, because that is known to happen.
Yeah, I saw that. Throw some gorilla tape. Yeah, gorilla tape. You'll be all right.
Okay.
All right, Chad, Quartermaster. Tell me about it.
So right now, I'm sure there's a lot more I'm going to learn in this in the training next year. We're going to be doing 3 individual weeks of training. The 21 team that's going out this year is actually doing theirs right now. They're doing one in July, one in August, one in September, where they're packing up the boat. Primarily, my job has been up to this point, since I was the one that got us all hooked on this crazy adventure, is been taking care of a lot of the paperwork, a lot of the forms and stuff like that. I know we get over to La Gomera. We're going to be doing a nice little bag drag with all of our stuff with the Atlantic campaign. They're going to come out and inspect everything we have. And my job will be to make sure everything is laid out for inspection. The boat will be inspected. There'll be multiple walkthroughs, a couple of days in a row to make sure that we have everything we need. Morning of the race day, they will sign off on everything. And I'm pretty much going to be doing whatever I can and whatever else they tell me this job implies or entails. But I'm going to be assisting Tommy with the water makers, assisting Will with some of the navigation stuff. And of course, I'll be assisting with some of the rowing, maybe a couple hours a day, possibly. But But to break it down a little bit more before you get to Nick, for as far as the Fight or Die side, I know that a lot of I know we talked a lot about the WNA stuff, but the so Fight or Die is as we reached out to them and we first got the notification, I started reaching out to Tommy and those guys and telling them, hey, like this is what we're into. Nick talked to them a little bit and they kind of broke down their mission. Fight or Die is actually a nonprofit. It was out of Colorado and they just moved base station to Alabama, but they got a twofold mission. It's kind of what's got me hooked was the ocean rowing, which is the flagship, but the primary mission of Fight or Die is to create a safety nets for mental health throughout communities to kind of help vets. It's expanding to help with the veterans in other areas, and then of course the flagship of the 3,000-mile ocean row with all American, all U.S. military 4-person team. So there's a lot involved other than just the ocean rowing. That's kind of like the flagship of what they do. And that's what kind of got me hooked on at first. But yeah, as far as the Quartermaster stuff, I've been doing a lot of the bereavement forums of saying like, hey, we might die. Like make sure Tommy's wife knows that he has life insurance.
Doubled up.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff that I get to fill out. So
No, for sure. I understand. So Nick, as the captain of this vessel, you I would assume are basically, the overseer, making sure everything's good, making sure everything's right. Do you, in a sense, learn everybody else's job to a T or just enough?
Well, we'll have training next year, and they'll train us. They'll cross train us and everything. I'm also the medic. So I was a first responder before I was working with the State Patrol, so it just makes sense for me to be the medic as well. The captain, believe it or not, doesn't really have a lot of responsibility. Like the navigator, we need to know where we're going. The engineer, we need to make sure our boat works. And the quartermaster, we need to make sure we have all our shit, right? But one of the most important things about this row isn't the equipment, isn't the gear. It's the mindset. You need to have a positive mindset when you're doing this, because if you attempt to do something crazy like this, like row fucking boat 3,000 miles, you need to be in the right mindset. If somebody's not doing okay, that needs to be fucking addressed right away. And we figured with what I do with Warriors Next Adventure, it just makes sense for me to be the captain. Mainly because they already took everything else. There was nothing else left. But no, so my goal is to motivate. My goal is to make sure these guys are good to go. Make sure these guys are good to go mentally, physically, spiritually. We need to make sure that we have a bottle of Talisker whiskey on us, so when we cross harbor, we can actually crack a bottle. Maybe on New Year's and Christmas. But no, so my goal is to essentially be the backup. Whatever these guys need help with, I'm going to help with. We got an issue with the engineer. I'm going to help with the engineer stuff. Chad, I think you're the alternate, right? The alternate engineer?
correct.
Yeah, okay. So to be honest, man, like Chad has made all of this super easy, because once Chad came to me with this, I was like, I'm trying to run a full organization, and Chad, Tommy, and Will are my, essentially my main fundraisers. So I'm like, why don't you guys focus on Fight or Die and make sure we get this shit to the point where we're going to knock this shit out of the water, right? And Chad went on and got a title sponsor with Hester automotive dealership over in Western New York, paid for the full sponsorship. So we're completely covered. We're still raising money because we need money to get overseas. We need money for the gear, for registration, everything like that. So to be honest, Chad has made this so easy for all of us, and we appreciate it. You're the asshole that's making it. So.
I know. Well, it's kind of my fault. So I got a sense of responsibility to the team. So
Shout out to Hester Automotive out of Buffalo. So going into the next topic, my next question, and we could just go back around. We'll start with Will again. What is your biggest fear doing this role? And when I say that, I'm not talking about the fear that makes you wimp. I'm talking about that fear that's good, right? That gets you motivated, that gets you going. Is there anything you think this journey is going to entail when it comes to that?
Man, like as far as like plain old phobias, like I'm a really sucky swimmer, right? And so that's
Now
really
you tell us, Will.
irrelevant. Yeah, it's really irrelevant like, when you're in the middle. So if we capsize or whatever, you're done anyway. That doesn't matter. But fear for me is, gosh, I'm so excited to do this, but at the end of it, what's next? Like, and I guess that's how I look, right? Like we do this great big awesome thing, but then what's next, right? And I'm afraid of the letdown after we pop that flare and we get home and I'm sitting on my couch, man. I'm gonna be like, all right, that was cool. What now?
No, for sure. Cause I was thinking about that because I don't know if you guys watch sports at all, but like the NBA finals, right? And I usually watch them and I keep up with them, but I didn't keep up with them like I should this year. And I did end up watching like after halftime, so the last half of the last game, right? And you can tell like the Bucks were kind of in control and they were gonna win the game. And then right before they win, I was thinking about it and I was like, this is the peak, because yes, you're gonna celebrate, you're gonna have the parades, all that, but right now, right before it hits zero, you're at this peak, and then it's only gonna go down to the next year. And now you got to re-up and do something even bigger, even better. And so I understand that. So that's super genuine. Tommy, give me a good fear of yours that's going to keep you motivated on this row.
Well, thanks to Will's answer, I have a new fear. I hadn't even thought of that. I don't have the 100 million to go to space. Honestly, I'm not too scared. There's not a whole lot of fear. The fear of failing, the fear of leaving something out there, But I don't think I'm even going to get to that point. We have no idea, the four of us, what is going to happen night 22 when we're halfway fucking home and it is pitch black outside. We have no idea what that's going to be like. So although that is terrifying, we know it's going to be pitch black. We know we might be in 10-foot swells at that point. The boat might roll over. We know these things, but until we experience it, I don't think any of us really have any idea of what to be scared of. So just put that aside. I am so excited to pop flares in Antigua and have my family waiting for me at the finish line. That the fear, the things that are scary are just so much more exciting because I get to experience those.
For sure. Before we get to you, Chad, I just want to say I actually myself was thinking, okay, if I had 4 people, do I even know 3 other people that and the answer was yes. But the reason why I think this is so special is because they're not connected in any way, right? So the fact that you guys were able to connect this and make it, reality is super special. And that's why I'm here for it. It's still an honor. Like I said, I can't say that enough. You guys rock. So Chad, when it comes to that biggest fear, and I just want to reiterate, fear is sometimes it's a good thing. I'm talking about that fear that's going to say we're making it. You know what I mean? I don't care what I have to do.
Right.
We're getting to the other side.
Right. I had to make sure I was unmuted there for a second. I think for me, there's a lot of unknowns and stuff like that when it comes to it. I think the biggest thing that's going to push me as far as the fear aspect is going to be when we get past, everyone says you get to day 7 and you're doing 2-hour shifts is how we're going to row it, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. That's 12 hours of rowing a day. So by day 7 of us sitting in this small little boat together, shitting in a bucket, 2 of us are rowing for 12 hours a day. And they say by day 7, you are completely mentally and physically broken. I've never pushed myself to that point. But at the same time, I think when we're coming down to a positive way to pitch the fear is I dragged 3 guys. And I wouldn't say I dragged them. To be honest with you, I think it's kind of a stupid way to put it. I don't think I dragged these guys. These guys, I fed them my passion. They found their own purpose and their own reason for doing this. And we all believe in the veterans mental health cause and why we're doing what we're doing. But my fear would be that would keep me going is the fact that I dragged 3 idiots out into a boat in the ocean. And when it comes down to it, my body is beat, my mind is beat. I'm going to replay that. That's going to be the one thing, the one piece of fear I keep replaying is I don't think I can keep rowing. Like I need a break. And I'll keep saying, no, man, I drug these guys out here. I'm giving them 110% because I'm not failing them because I was the asshole that started this. And I'll be the asshole that stays on the oars. So I think when it comes to positive fear, I think I'm going to use that as a positive fear. And Tommy's laughing at me right now because he knows that I drug him out here. You're muted, Tommy. You are muted.
If your inner voice ever has a hard time saying that, just know there's 3 dudes on that boat letting you never forget.
I'm sure it's gonna come out. I'm sure it's definitely gonna come out. But that's definitely knowing that the whole process got started because I watched that video and I saw that look in their eyes and I was like, hey, I cannot. I told my wife, I said, I cannot let this opportunity pass me up. Knowing that I see this look in their eyes when they pop this flare, I got to know what it feels like. And then I kind of feel the same way Will does. Like once I finish this, like I joked with the wife the other day about, oh, you just started the Pacific run up. She was like, no, this is a one-time thing. But she knows.
Yeah.
She knows just
exactly.
as well as Will's wife does, as Tommy's wife does, as Nick's girlfriend does. They all know that this is kind of what we do. I mean, we are rowing this boat to prove to everyone that's been down and out that, hey, you've been down and out, but you're talking to a couple guys that have been in the bottom and didn't think they were coming back up, are now rowing 3,000 miles. So that's all going to be played in my mind the whole time of I'm not letting these guys down because I drug them in there.
For sure. I could totally relate. Now, obviously, I'm not rowing across the ocean, but once you get that itch,
Not yet.
yeah, exactly. Once you get that itch, I'm telling you, yep, it's definitely hard to get it off. So, Nick, biggest fear, motivation, that good fear that's going to get you across to the other side. Give it to me.
So a lot of people don't realize horses originated in Spain, and I just can't wait to get the fuck away from Spain because fuck horses. Horses are terrifying. So that's probably my only fear. Horses. No, it's really
Hey.
People think I'm joking. I'm serious. Fuck horses. So I'd say the main drive for me is I have a little girl at home who thinks I'm fucking Superman, you know? And if I go out there and I don't make it back on the boat, because I'm not thinking about dying, but if I don't make it back on that boat with my fucking 3 crewmates, I'll forever let her down, you know. But it's not just her, it's the boys in the boat too, you know. I personally, with my nonprofit, put myself responsible for other veterans' lives because that serves my purpose, because helping other people see that the future is bright if they want it to be, that's the best thing in the world. You know, having a conversation with somebody and just getting them to see that the past doesn't have to control us anymore. The future does, right? The only thing that matters in life is what you're doing today, what are you doing tomorrow? And so I keep thinking about that constantly every time this row comes into play, because the last thing I'm ever going to do is let down another veteran. And so I sure as hell am not going to puss out on this row. So it's the drive of other veterans, but it's at the same time, the whole point of what we do with Warriors Next Adventure and with Fight or Die is to inspire other veterans to do great things. Will, I'm going to use your phrase again. Will has a saying, do big things. You know, it's like, if we're not taking time every single year to do something that fucking terrifies us, then what's the point of living? We need to do things that are outside of our comfort zone. And if we don't do that, we will never grow.
For sure. Yeah, that resiliency is something super important. And I think that was one motivation behind this podcast for me, is because, yes, I do struggle, you know, and I've struggled with, you know, internalizing things and being vulnerable, but I've always been, you know, a real rock for a lot of people because they see that resilience in me. And I kind of like to project that and reflect that because that's what brings me peace. You know, I get pleasure, not just pleasure, but I get a sense of purpose, like we were talking about earlier, when I know that I've helped out another veteran, another friend, another coworker, whatever the case may be. And that speaks volumes to what you guys are doing. And man, I can't say it enough. You guys are rowing across the ocean. Y'all know that?
It's funny because I've had at least multiple people. I mean, obviously being the only one in, I push this in every avenue, up and down and sideways, to try to see what we can do to get this approved and stuff like that. And I'm still working stuff, because either way I'm doing this row, they know that I've already made that perfectly clear that like sometimes you gotta put things aside, and it might just be the active duty retirement I might have to step away from. But at the same time, if I got to row 50 days straight or 45 days straight to set a world record, set 45 days in a boat with these guys to prove to one person that, hey, you need to go out and, like he said, like Will said, do big things. Like if it affects one person and I come back and they're like, hey man, you stepped away from the military, I'll be like, you should have seen. We get people that ask us all the time that have told me on different podcasts and have told me through messages of like, hey, you inspire us. I mean, I know all these guys have heard it. We had a meet and greet up at Will's hometown in Wisconsin, and people were coming around the bar, people I didn't even know, that were like, you inspire us. And the funny thing is we haven't even hopped in a boat yet, but we're making a difference with our mindset. And like the big thing with Will, when I asked him, and when we did a podcast before and they asked him like, hey, why the hell are you doing this? And we're all thinking for logical answers, and Will just comes out with the why not? And I'm like, shit, like my answer was good. Here's Will saying why not? So
exactly,
if we got to do this we got to put ourselves in uncomfortable. I mean, the book I just read references it, Nick's referenced it, Will's referenced it, Tommy's referenced it. It's about being uncomfortable, or being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I would say this tops the uncomfortable things I've ever done in my life. So I've done some pretty out there things, but this is definitely, I would go out on a whim and say for every single one of us on this boat, this is definitely the trying to get comfortable with something that's extremely uncomfortable.
I don't know, dude. I pet a horse last year. That was pretty fucking uncomfortable.
Speaking of uncomfortable, one of my best friends in the world. So I live in San Antonio, Texas. I'm stationed out here at Randolph, but I'm from Odessa, Texas. It's West Texas. I don't know if you've seen Friday Night Lights, but that's me, oil patch town. I'll always be home. My best friend is from there. His name is Dayton, and he's gone through a lot. Had cancer when we were like middle school, high school. He was gonna join the military, got the waivers for the cancer. He ended up like falling and slitting his hand open, and so he ended up like defecting his like trigger finger, and then they denied him. He tried for over 2 years to join the Army. Didn't work out for him, so he's a firefighter now. And I've only been at Randolph for about 6-7 months now, and he's always been like, we're doing the Moab. But I've been overseas, and every time it comes up, I was like, dude, I just can't go. Like, I literally cannot get off and get on a plane and go do a Moab. And granted, I'm a pretty decent runner. Like, I can run above average more than most people, but I am not in no Moab shape. But stuff like this, I'm telling you, like it sparks this fire in myself. And I'm genuinely a self-motivated person. So I couldn't even imagine what it does for people who actually are trying to rise up, trying to get out of that rut and trying to push through. So on that same note, I guess I wanna ask, who is the lead point on this training? I know y'all still have some time, but how are y'all physically gearing up for this task?
So I trained jiu-jitsu. After 2015, I got into MMA again, and by 2018, I was ranked number 3 welterweight in Minnesota. So again, it's the whole follow your dreams kind of thing. And so I continue to train jiu-jitsu and stay in shape that way. I train about 3 days a week, and I'm a carpenter too, so I'm constantly moving. I never stop moving. On top of that, my coach has a row machine too, so I try to row at least 2 hours a day if I can. Chad has really been killing it.
Yeah, I kind of went all out because my whole purpose when I started this team was to get all this workout stuff at the house, motivate these guys. And to be honest with you, every single one of these guys, every time they reach out to me, is more motivating than me. I'll call Will to motivate him. They'll be like, "Hey man, I haven't talked to you in a while. How let's motivate Will." And I get off the phone with Will and I'm like, "God damn it, he got me again." Like I call Tommy. He's like, "Man, you checking up on me, dude? You don't need to. I'll talk to you in like a day or so." Throwing motivation right back at me. Like I said, so I'll shoot out something to these guys and be like, "Yeah, I just try. I'm on a new supplement stack. I'm hitting the weights pretty hard. I do rowing. I got a nice Concept 2 rower I've been rowing with. I'll reach out to Tommy. Tommy will sit there and be like, "Oh, what are you rowing at?" And I'm like, "Oh, this many strokes per minute." He's like, "Oh, I've been way past that." And I'm like, "Oh shit." I need to step up my game. Best advice they ever gave us was from one of the former rowers and one of the founders when he sent out a message to all of us saying, pretty much said, "Fuck cardio, get big for rowing. You need upper body strength." 15 years in the military, no one's ever told me not to run, not to worry about cardio. That was the best advice I've ever gotten, and I have not run as much as I should have. So, but yeah, I've been hitting a lot of the weights. And
one of the big things is the average guy loses 20% of their body weight during the race.
Exactly.
So like 20%, I'm 210 right now, right? So I'm gonna lose 40. Like me at 165, 170, that's not a good weight for me. So like we're all gonna have to try to bulk up, and so we can afford that 20%.
You get on that pizza.
I just mathed that out for myself. That's not good.
It's that
Yeah, I can see Tommy over here worried a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
No,
Tommy doesn't have as much to give.
I'm putting weight on right now, but I have a long way to go thanks to those numbers. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
All right, and lastly about the whole boat concept, I just want to know. I have an idea, but as far as like logistically food, so how does that work for the people out there?
It's we're gonna pack pretty much the way they plan it out. It's like an MRE meal. They're little bag meals. They say to bring 2/3 of your supply to be meals, 1/3 to be snacks of your little snack packs. However, we've talked to previous rowers and stuff like that, and they said 1/3 to be meal because you're going to have to heat these things up. If you don't need it all, you're going to have to reheat it. And all your prep work on the boat while we're out there is going to have to be during our off time. When you're rowing, you're rowing. So you're talking Tommy's fixing the water maker. I'm rowing. He's got to work extra long. I'm rowing, or Nick, or Will's rowing, or Nick's rowing. So you have only those 2-hour windows, and that includes your sleep. That includes fixing things. That includes cooking meals. So when it comes to the meal portions, we're going to have roughly 50 to 60 days worth of MRE style packs that we're going to have to pack. Because once we leave, we're 100% self-sustained. We'll see, there'll be 2 support boats. We will see them maybe once, twice, if that, and they could be days away. So everything that we take with us on that boat has to come back with us on that boat. So it is going to be, meals are all going to be old school MRE stuff.
Lots of peanut butter.
Lots of peanut butter.
We'll be out there, spend Christmas Day together and everything. So.
Oh, that's a wonderful ass Christmas, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Dehydrated ham.
Yeah, I love to hear it. Well, guys, kind of want to get to the end here because you guys have been great. And I think what you guys are doing from my perspective, again, I'm going to just repeat it. Why? Because I don't care. And this is my podcast. You guys are rowing across the ocean, right? For mental health, veteran mental health awareness, right? Warriors like no other. Fight or Die is a movement, right? So I guess for the closing remarks, if you guys want to say anything, I know it's a lot of information. So all that you guys got going on with those nonprofits, where they can find you, et cetera, please, if y'all want to start, I guess we can start with Will and then go down Tommy, Chad, and Nick. Tell the people.
Yes. Find us on, you can follow Fight or Die at usvetrow.org. You can go on there. You can follow the team. They got a Facebook page. I think Chad's working on a TikTok page.
We do have a TikTok page.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
know if
at
they're
Fight or Die.
under the TikTok thing. So, Chad, tell them about TikTok.
So yeah, the only thing I even put on there is we got as a joke, me and the wife, she was watching just dumb videos on there, and I started getting video footage sent from some of the 2019, 2018 team, bunch of stuff from our trips and stuff like that, and us meeting up, and old school pictures of us in the military. So a lot of our stuff it's at Fight or Die is our TikTok name, and that's all I do. I put videos of rowing stuff on there. People shoot us stuff all the time. Within a matter of the first month, we had over 20, I think it was like 1,800 people following the journey of the row. A lot of other vets. That's where I met the guy I did the podcast with last time, Dylan Sessler, hell of a guy. And but yeah, if we'll be posting a lot of stuff as it comes closer with our training. We're going to break down some video clips and throw them up there. Obviously, it's only like 1 minute clips. So
as far as the actual race, there's an app called YB Races, and you go on there, and we have a GPS tracker on our boat, and it updates every 4 hours. So you'll be able to track us and all the other boats across the ocean.
just be careful. That's addicting. When they went this last year, me and the entire team, and probably the guys going off this year in the 21 team, you stare at your phone all day and you check to see where everyone's at. And then come the day they arrive and they say that they're arriving in like 3 hours, you're on Facebook watching them arrive. So the YB tracker is unbelievable, but it tells wind conditions, it tells where we're at, it tells how we've tracked based on hours. So yeah,
It shows the wave height too, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say before Nick goes, I was gonna say, you know what that does, right? You said it's addicting. Think about go back real quick to what Will said, or what am I gonna do next, right? Think about this. It's addicting because you were tracking it. Guess what you're setting up? You're setting up that next set of 4 that's gonna say, guess what, guys? We're rowing across the damn ocean, and nothing is gonna stop us from getting this done. That's exactly what I hear when you say those words.
I like it. It's that spark, man. It's that spark.
Sure. And that's all you need. Nick, what you got going on? Where can they find you?
You can check out Warriors Next Venture at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have a podcast on YouTube and Facebook. Everything's Warriors Next Venture. Easy to find us. Again, go check out Fight or Die's Facebook page, their Instagram as well. If people are always asking, like, how can I help? How can I help? Share content. The best thing you can do is share some content. So if you see a post on Fight or Die's Instagram, repost it. If you see something on Facebook, repost it. Just share things, invite people, talk about it. But most importantly, talk about your mental health. That's the main reason why all of us are doing this. Fight or Die, I don't know if we talked about this, but Fight or Die actually does scholarships every year for people graduating from Denver U that want to help veterans with mental health. And you don't have to be a veteran to get this scholarship. So it's like $2,000. And West Her actually added another scholarship this year. So it's amazing what Fight or Die is doing. These guys have an organization that I 100% can get behind. Obviously, we're rowing their boat across the ocean. So I have a lot of different organizations that I partner up with, and Fight or Die seemed like a no-brainer right when I talked to Bryant, because not only the ocean rowing, but the scholarships for mental health for veterans. That's my mission, is to help veterans any way possible. And if we can do it by rowing across the ocean, that's it. That's the next mission.
Yeah, they also, as the beginning of the year, they started up a thing. It's on the Fight or Die Facebook page, the usvetrow.org. There's a mental health first aid course that Fight or Die offers. And as part of the one of the rowing teams, we all have to go through it. I've been through the program. It's a great course. Teaches you about dealing with people in crisis, knowing when to step in, when to step out. And there's a big section in the back that for all of us for us that we deal with each other, it's the self-care portion of, if you're going to help people, it is taxing. Make sure you're doing the self-care. But usually with mental health first aid courses, you got to pay for these courses. It's a 3-year national certification. And that's part of our fundraising, is that it pays for people to go through that course. Doesn't have to be military. It could be civilian, just anyone who wants to be involved in becoming a mental health first aid a mental health first aider, they can actually take this course for free. It's all on the website and everything like that. So I would definitely highly recommend people to check that out and be a part of it, because it gives you a lot of good tools of helping people. So
Tommy.
Awesome.
What is left? Holy smokes.
do big things, Tommy.
Well,
BDE.
that's what we're here to do. We're here to represent Fight or Die in one of the most extreme, crazy challenges that is out there. They say the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge is the toughest row on the planet. And the four of us are going to go take this on, and we're going to do it, and we're going to turn heads. Hopefully we get a lot more attention than any of us can ever fathom, because the more people that know about this mission that we're on, to raise awareness for a plaguing problem amongst our brothers and sisters, the better off the world is going to be after that. So I am so grateful to Fight or Die. I am ready to do this and put fear aside and shit in a bucket in front of these guys for 45 days.
That's
That's
going to be
doing
some of
big
the
things.
best. That's going to be some of the best starry nights we've ever seen. To be rowing next to dolphins and whales, and it's going to be unbelievable. And to share it with you guys is, after 12 years of knowing all you guys and running guns with Tommy and Nick, and working with Will, it's almost surreal that we're all getting back in a boat. Like, the first time that Will and Tommy met was, it didn't even seem like they just met. Yeah, they just met 3 weeks ago, and they acted like you couldn't even tell that they didn't know each other. So
sure.
it's an experience.
One thing I don't think that was said in all this too is that the craziness of this is more people have been to outer space than have done this race.
Yeah.
More people have climbed Mount Everest than have done this race.
108 American males have rowed a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. So I
And we're
think
going to do
after
it as
this
the
year,
first ever.
there's a few more
all
this
Air
year
Force
doing
team.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
And
4 cops in a boat. What's the worst thing that could happen?
and just so everybody knows, right? I just said it like 50,000 times, but I'm gonna say 50,001. They're rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. That is,
The dumbest thing
I
you've
can't
ever
even,
heard.
I can't even put that into words, like how ridiculous that is, but it's also so encouraging. You're helping people so much around all aspects of life. You have no idea. I appreciate you guys for doing all this stuff and helping me and motivating me. I'm gonna provide all the links, to every foundation below. We're definitely gonna keep this energy up. I just want to thank you guys again, and man, the ocean. Now I know, like, I keep repeating that, but you guys rock. Y'all kick ass. I want y'all to keep kicking ass, and we can't wait to see y'all 2022 going into the new year on the other side of the Atlantic.
Oh
We're
yeah, man.
excited for it.
Thanks for having us on, man. I appreciate it.
All
Yeah,
right,
thanks a
it's
lot,
been a
man.
pleasure, guys. Remember, Fight or Die is the movement. It's a lifestyle. Be sure to check these guys out. Remember, I'll have all the links below. Y'all take care, everybody.